Hello everyone, welcome to Manika IAS. Let us start our discussion with respect to today's news analysis. Let us take up the very first topic, which is ULFA Peace Pact. So this was signed on 29th of December 2023 between the three parties, namely ULFA, center government and the Assam government. Okay, so that is why this is called tripartite peace deal. Okay, so there were two factions of ULFA. One was the faction which supported the talks for the peace, and there was this other faction named ULFA. I I stand for independent. It was led by Mr. Barua, which was not a party to these talks. So these talks started about a decade ago, and we have this deal on December 29th. So let us understand the provisions of these pact because they are important when it comes to your GS paper 3. Okay, so this topic became important for due to that reason. So the very first provision is that they said they will renounce the violence. They will renounce violence. Okay, so the member of the ULFA, they said that they will give up the violent activities, they'll give up the arm, and they will work in a democratic manner as per the law established. Okay, so the second point was, see, the demand they were having was that they wanted to have a separate nation as Assam as a separate nation. So now they give up this demand and they say, okay, they're ready to maintain the integrity of the country. They'll respect the integrity of the country. This was the second thing. Third, the government has announced a package of 1.5 lakh CR for the development of the areas of Assam and the people as well. So these were the three provisions, and the fourth most important provision is that they have accepted the political demands. What are these political demands? There are two major political demands. One, they say that they want to have a peaceful existence, so they want the border dispute that Assam is having with neighboring states should be settled. So one, they are demanding settling the boundary dispute. This is one. Second, they want maximum representation to indigenous community. Next, we'll be discussing about the background of the issue. From where did we have this ULFA and what were the issues? So in that, the major issue was that they were facing threat of of the people who were coming from outside the city, outside the place, outside the region. So now what they are demanding, that the Assam Legislative Assembly is 126 seats. Okay, so they want in this the maximum representation should be given to the indigenous people. Now, if you know that in the last elections, about 106 seats were given to the indigenous people and remaining were to the people who came from the outside. So this is their major demand. Then when the delimitation exercise is going to happen, it should be such that the indigenous people should get the maximum amount of representation in the legislature. So these are the provisions of the pact. Now let us move towards the background of the issue. Now, as we discussed, the Barua was not the faction of Barua was not the part of this pact, so this remain a challenge, and another challenge being the implementation. How you are going to settle the boundaries dispute, implementation. So that remains the second challenge. These two are the main challenges when we talk about this particular pact. Now let us understand the formation of ULFA. From where did it came into being? See, in during the 1972 India Pakistan war, at the time when there was a war going on in the current Bangladesh, a lot of refugees came to India, and majority of them settled in the area in Assam or surrounding Assam, right? So that created a threat in the mind of people that they are going to take, they are going to create a space for themselves and take away their privileges. So that remain a threat for those people. That is why in 1979 ULFA came into being, and it started as an anti-foreigners Assam agitation. Okay, and and In 1985, Assam Accord was signed. However, they still continued their radical activities because they were not satisfied with this Assam Accord. And as a result of which, these three, Arabinda Rajkova, Anup Chetia, and Paresh Barua, they started this in 1979, this ULFA. Now, it is this faction of this person, Arabinda Rajkova, that was a party to the accord. However, his faction was not a party. Now, what they started doing at that time, they started recruiting and training people into their faction in this neighboring states, Myanmar, China, and Pakistan, where they got their shelters. These countries supported because it was in their favor and they got the shelters. Okay, so it is there that they started recruiting and training their members, and then they started their activities like abduction of the officers and the government officers, so that they can create a threat in the mind of the government. Okay, however, in 1990, Operation Bajrang took place, in which the government tried to wipe out the ULFA, and they were able to capture almost around 1200 ULFA people. And and here they also banned ULFA, and as a result of which AFSPA was imposed in Assam, and Assam was declared as a disturbed state, and Armed Force Act was imposed in the state of Assam. Now let us see how the peace talk began. So, in the counters insurgency operation, as we discussed, about 1221 ULFA members were arrested, and ULFA, they set up their camps in Bangladesh and Bhutan, and with the support from terror groups. Okay, as we discussed, China and Pakistan supported these, so that they can create a constant disturbance in India, and that's why they supported these groups, these extremist group, and they set up their camps in Bangladesh and Bhutan. However, in 2003, they were removed from Bhutan, and 2009 from Bangladesh. Indian government, with the support of these government, they removed ULFA groups from Bhutan and Bangladesh. Okay, so in 2009, when the security forces got hold of the Rajkova, they signed a ceasefire agreement in September 2011 with the government. So this was the starting of the peace talks that we were talking, and the Barua expelled Rajkova from the ULFA in 2012 as a result of they signing this agreement with the government. However, in April 2013, anti-talks group, that means this Barua section, was renamed ULFA Independent, and the ULFA Independent currently operates in this Sagyang district of Myanmar. Barua is currently said to be based in Myanmar China border. So the current scenario is this, that the Rajkova faction signed a peace pact with the government. However, the Barua is still supposed to be staying in Myanmar China border. They are still out of the peace pact. Okay, now let us move to the next topic, India's debt burden. Now, this topic is important from your GS3 point of view, which is economics, as well as it is important for prelims when it comes to the trends and some factual information that we'll be discussing under this article. So, why it is in news? So, two things. Now, IMF has highlighted major two changes when it comes to Indian economy. So, that bring this topic into news. First of all, they say that the debt burden of India is not long-term sustainable. They are questioning the long-term sustainabilities of India's debt burden. Second, they have changed the Indian exchange rate regime from floating to stabilized. They earlier it was termed as a floating regime. Now they have said that it is stabilized. Now, what does the two terms mean? These two, exchange rate that we know is like price of one currency vis-a-vis the other. Now, earlier they they classified Indian exchange rate regime as floating exchange rate regime. That means it is managed by the market forces. Managed by market forces. Okay. However, when you talk about stabilize means it is also controlled by government. Now, why this is questionable? This is questionable because when you say that your exchange rate regime is not independent of the market forces, they are be controlled by the government, that lead to a negative investment sentiment in the country, that will discourage investments coming from the outer countries because then they question their profitability. Okay, so that is why these two are of major concern. Now let us discuss about the IMF report with respect to India's debt. It says that India's debt could be 100% of GDP under adverse circumstances by fiscal 2028. Now, what it is saying is, it is saying that the current debt burden is 56%. Okay, 57% of Indian GDP. Okay, now what it is saying is by 2028, India's debt burden would be 100% of the GDP. And currently, if we see that the union debt is 155.6 trillion rupees, that is 57.1% of GDP, as we discussed, and the debt of the state government is 28% of the GDP. Okay. Now, also, India's public debt to GDP ratio, that means debt by GDP, has increased from 81% in 2005 to 6, 84% in 21 to 22, and 81% in 22-23. That means if we consider the debt growth vis-a-vis the GDP growth, there is no difference when it comes to from 2005 till 2023. Say for example, this is if your debt was X and your GDP was Y. So in 2004, if X was 1 and in 2023 it is 10, okay, your GDP has grown with the same space, 1 to 10. So the ratio has not altered much, like from 81 to 84 and then back to 81. So it has remained stable. So if you see this, it seems to be that the GDP and debt is in good position. However, if we talk about the FRBM Act, FRBM Act, Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act, in 2018, it was amended and it specified that the GDP target for the center and state would be 40%. That when it was in 81%, they wanted to bring it down to 40%, and for state they wanted it to come to 20%, and collectively it should not be more than 60%. This is your debt to GDP targets. But India has not been able to bring it down to 60% so far. Okay, so this remain a concern because we have not been able to meet our targets. However, it has remained stagnant, and the IMF is saying that we might breach this also and reach to the 100% of the 100% of the GDP by 2028. This was about the news when it comes to the India's debt burden. Now, what are the reason for this high long-term risk? Why it is saying, considering that the debt to GDP burden has not altered, why is IMF saying that it is going to be unsustainable? So it is saying that because they say that India's to achieve its climate change mitigation goals and target, they need huge investment. Okay, and also through government borrowings can the weight of debt can act as a drag on the development due to limited access to financing, rising borrowing cost, and currency devaluation and sluggish growth. It is saying that this is going to be a vicious circle. Now, if you take you want to invest, but at the same time you have to pay interest on the borrowings. Okay, so that in interest that you have to pay will be that huge that it will impact eventually your development. Okay, that means if you have, say, your kitty have X amount of rupees, the major chunk will have to go to interest payments if it is based on borrowings. However, and in turn what will happen, you will have less amount for developmental activities. This is what the IMF is saying. Also, as per the UN, it says that countries are facing impossible choice of serving their debt and serving their people. And 3.3 billion people live in countries that spend more on interest payments than on the education or health. The IMF report is further substantiated by the UN, which says that countries today are facing this challenge of serving their debt as well as to cater to the needs of the people. And it's saying, as per the data, 3.3 billion people are actually living in the country which are spending more money on the payment of interest rather than on the education or health sectors. Okay, so your vital sectors are getting impacted because of the borrowings. This is what IMF is saying, UN is saying. Okay. It also says that the burden of debt is also asymmetric between the developed and the developing country. Say, for example, if there is a developed country, he that country takes borrows some rupees, borrows some money, then the interest they have to pay is relatively less as compared to the interest that a developing country has to pay on the same amount of money. So these are the reason that the IMF is saying that there are long-term risk when it comes to India's debt sustainability. Let us see the reasons why India is borrowing more money. What are the reasons? See, increase in cost of living, climate change. These are the two major things that have resulted in the borrowing. Also, global public debt has increased more than fourfold since 2000. It's not only with respect to India, it is the global public debt which has increased. However, the GDP has tripled. So if you see, the debt has increased four times, however, the GDP has increased three times. So there is a gap between the money that has been borrowed is not invested in the development. Rather, majority of them has is being not able to give you the amount of GDP which was supposed to give. Okay. It says that in 2022, the global public debt has reached a record US dollars 92 trillion, with the developing country accounting for 30% of the total debt. And out of those 30%, 70% is given to India, China, and Brazil. These three are the developing country which are taking 70% of this 30% debt. Okay. Now, what is the need as per the occasion? That you need to have conventional sources of financing, okay, as well as you need to have greater private sector investment and carbon pricing to deal with climate change. Because this is one area which need more amount of invested money. So you want something equivalent to such carbon prices mechanism, okay? And you also want that your private sector invest so that you have to borrow less. So you have to encourage private sector investment. At the same time, you have to have some conventional sources of financing, and at the same time, you have to have such mechanism that can deal with with the climate crisis. Now, what is the challenges for India? See, from where will you get money? So private also comes from the investment, okay, apart from the country, the government, or the World Bank or anything. These are government organizations, but it is the retail investor or the private investor, you know, that invest on the basis of your credit ratings. However, it says that the credit ratings have not been changed. So if you see from 2006 till today, the India's credit rating is triple B as per SP Global and Fitch. So these are the two major credit rating companies. Okay. However, as per them, they have not changed India credit rating since 2006. And what is they saying is कि India's low per capita income is less for India, and that is one of the reason which is attributed to the less sovereign rating. Okay. Now let us see the next topic, and these topic we'll discuss with the help of a MCQ question. Let's read the question. Consider the following statement with respect to the palm oil. Statement 1, it says Malaysia is the largest producer of palm oil. Second, India is the largest importer of the palm oil. So pause your video and try to answer this question before we discuss the answer to this question. So now let us discuss the answer. Malaysia is the largest producer of the palm oil. Indonesia is the largest. So first statement is incorrect. Indonesia is the largest. However, Indonesia plus Malaysia, which is the second largest producer, they together contribute to 84% of palm oil in the world. They together make 84% of the palm oil in the world. Okay. Now India is the largest importer of the palm oil, and it was in news only because that India's in December its import has increased to 4-month high. Okay, so the answer to this question is B. B is correct. Second statement is correct. First is incorrect. Okay. Now let us move towards the next. Another thing that you must keep in your mind, that palm oil is largely used in packaged products, cosmetics, and if you see, if India is the largest importer of palm oil, that means these industries and some other related industry, they consume palm oil, that and palm oil is not considered that healthy, you know, and that is why it is used in packaged products. That means India is again becoming the larger consumer of these products. Okay, now let us move to the next question, which is, consider the following statement with reference to purchasing manager index. Okay, so the first statement says a score of more than 50 indicates expansion in the economy. It is a survey based index. Second statement. Third statement says it is released every quarter. Okay, now again take a pause and try to answer this question before we discuss. See, purchaser manager index is released by S&P Global. Okay, it is a survey based index that they try and understand the sentiments of the producers. Okay, and how they think the market is going to be. That is why this is correct. Second, it is released in the beginning of a month, so it is monthly. Correct, and they give a rating from 1 to 100, in which 0 to 50 indicates, matlab less than 50 indicates there is a contraction, and more than 50 indicates there is a expansion. So first statement is correct. Okay, so the your answer is two statements only. How many of the above given statement is are correct? So the answer is only two. The third statement is incorrect because it is released monthly. Now, why it was in news? India's purchasing manager index is 56 as per the latest report, which came in January for the month of December. Okay, and they what they do is they calculate their index for manufacturing sector separately, and then they do it for services sector, and then they form a composite index. This was about your purchasing managers index. Now, I will give you one mains question that you can write and do practice for the answer writing according to what we have discussed. The question is, assess the efficacy of ULFA Peace Pact in resolving the Assam conflict, discuss its provision, and highlight the key challenges in its implementation. Try to write this answer, and you can also send us your answers through Telegram or WhatsApp. And if you want to have the PDF of the same content, you can check a Telegram channel. The link will be in description. Till then, have a good day. Thank you.